is it hard to say no to things right now because it just feels like it's all happening, or do you just love the work ethic, or?
No, I love the chase, man. I love to go. My personality is I'm gonna wake up and get out of bed and go all day anyways, whether I'm on vacation. I'm the guy on vacation that's like, what all can we do here? You know, my wife's like, take me to a beach and don't talk to me. And I'm like, they have a lighthouse. There's a water tower. There's, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's kind of already my personality. So it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me much. The schedule is a little bit, though. I mean, I think my problem is that I'm a very honest human. Mm-hmm. Like, and I tried to carry that for being years of being a dishonest human, that I may have overcorrected my path. When I'm a little overscheduled or overwhelmed, I kind of wear it maybe a little more than most artists, but I think it's because they're faking their way through this whole thing anyways. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I hear? The thing that comes right after faking it is white knuckling it.
Man, that's deep. No, for me it's been good. It's just been trying to find space, so.
Okay, I want to know, here's the thing. I think you know that you are a pretty magnetic character. Did you always have like main character energy? Like as a kid, were you like, was the play going on around you and you were the star of the show? Or?
No, dude, I've always looked at it like I was the narrator.
Oh.
I've always looked at it like I was watching the show with one of them old hats that they wore when they called baseball in the 20s. You know what I'm saying? And I was just narrating what was happening around me.
Whoa.
I swear, that's still how I feel now. It's how I feel like I'm writing songs. I feel like I'm just narrating. I almost, weirdly enough, don't even feel like I'm in the room.
When you're writing?
No, in general. Like in
really?
life. Like I still kind of move through life like I'm observing a room as opposed to being in one. And I guess now I've become the center of one, but even back then I always just felt like I was just like narrating what was happening in the room.
My version of that is I'm monitoring the room. Because I need to like make sure everybody's okay. Because that's how I'm going to stay safe.
Right.
So I was I maybe wasn't narrating, but I was constantly reading the room.
Yeah. I can definitely feel, but the gift that comes with the curse of that came from anxiety and probably something further back with you. But the gift of that is that you are also now have an emotional intelligence in a room that most people would never understand. Like I can read a room at a frequency that most people can't because I'm that emotionally connected to what's happening in the room. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And by nature, I'm always pushing the room to a boundary to see what's happening in it anyways.
Wait, say more about that.
Well, you've seen me, you know how I am.
Like you want to amp it up a little bit?
Well, it's where are we at here? You know what I mean? Let's just figure out because that's easier for me to narrate that way. Once I can push out and see where everybody's at, then I can sit back and watch,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, so I've never thought about like coming from a main character situation as much as being a guy that's just, and even I hope that when this is all said and done, I think I'll be one of the voices that will narrate how it actually happened anyways. You know what I mean? Like truly I do, because I think that I've seen it so clear. From not my perspective, I've been so clear at watching what Morgan's done and being able to really watch it and watch the Zach Bryan and watch the Tyler Childers effect and just this insane moment in country music that we're in. This is by far the wildest moment in country music history. I used to be like, I know this isn't close to what the Outlaws did in the 70s. That's what I would say 2 years ago. 2 years removed, I think even Waylon would look around and go, this shit's crazy.
Fun,
you know what I mean?
Right?
I think Waylon would look around right now and be like, this is the Wild West, dude. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think it's just such an interesting time. So yeah, even in that aspect, I feel like I'm just kind of narrating what's happening.
So if you see yourself, and I might be taking this too far, but like potentially narrating this story, is this about legacy too? Are you thinking about like what your legacy might be in the midst of all that?
No, I'm thinking about what my purpose is now.
Say more.
Yeah, and I think that if I live there, that'll grow out. But it's just more about being really present and knowing exactly where we are. Like I think a lot of times when people are in moments, they don't see it until later. Mm-hmm. They look back like they didn't really appreciate what was happening with the Outlaws in the 70s in this town. Anybody from the 70s that's still around that tells you that is lying. They did not appreciate them. That's why they were called the Outlaws. Yeah. They were not appreciated in this town.
Well, certainly not by industry.
For sure, 100%.
Right?
100%. fans, critical mass loved them. First
Yeah.
platinum album in country music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for me, it's like they didn't realize, nobody realized the impact they were having until it was over. I think I'm one of the people that's clearly seeing the impact that's happening right now. Like, I am in the middle of it. I feel like I'm in the eye of the storm, so I'm in the calmest part, and I'm getting to really see the craziness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sitting in the most quiet part, so I'm watching the success of what's happening around me in slow motion. That's not in regard of my own. It's kind of probably moving fast, but I'm being able to really watch the powerful moment that's happening in the pop culture crossover of country music right now, led by Morgan Wallen, Zach Bryan, Luke Combs, Kane Brown. You know what I mean? It's just, I was looking at the pop radio charts today.
Mm-hmm.
Man, every 6 song is a country song, dude. You know, I don't want to say it too loud because I don't want to take it from us. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's just, we're in an interesting time.
What do you think a casual observer would miss about what's happening in the moment today in country?
I would hope that we wouldn't get so caught up over the fighting details of it that we miss the moment. And sometimes we're guilty of that, of like getting into the nuance of our argument.
Uh-huh.
Is this
What
country?
is this?
That country?
Yep, hate
what
that
does this
one.
belong here? Why wasn't that included in this? Why wasn't this here? And it's like sometimes we're kind of, I want us to be careful not to cannibalize ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Let's be gatherers, not splinterers. Yeah.
I seen Chris Stapleton do an interview the other day, and man, I felt heard. And I've never had a conversation with him. And he didn't say my name, but what he said was, he said, country music's always been somewhere between this and this. You know what I mean? As far back as Johnny Paycheck and Gail.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He was like, there's always been, he's like, there's an argument that some of what I do isn't country. There's an argument that some of what I do couldn't be anything but country. Mm-hmm. And that's what's always made country different than every other genre, is that they never tried to police the genre. They allowed the genre to grow. And this was Stapleton's words.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I would hope that if you are one of the people that is so caught off guard by how crazy things are right now, that you don't miss the growth.
Yeah.
And that ultimately this settles country into a new space. When the dust clears and settles and this era of us are gone and moved on, or, you know, becoming into our legacy side of our career, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Then I think that's whenever the dust will settle and we'll be like, man, that was great for country music.
Yeah. No.
But we know it now. Don't wait for the dust to settle. We know how great this is for country music. You know what I mean? It's like, it's hard to deny, you know?
You know, you were talking about this ability that you have to be in the moment, to be present. And I know you've spoken about your anxiety. I've already brought my anxiety into this conversation. The thing that's interesting about anxiety versus that, what you were just describing, being in the eye, the calm part of it, of the storm, anxiety is always looking forward or looking backward. It is never, when I'm planted and I'm right here, I'm with you and I am anxiety free. Yeah. But I'm thinking about that thing I did yesterday, or I'm worrying and fretting about something that's gonna happen later. So there is, and it's interesting even to apply that to what would it be like for us to just soak up the moment that we're in?
So anxiety never lives in the moment.
Yeah.
That's for sure. When I was in jail, this guy said this. I don't know if I believed it then. I don't know that I believe it now, but it's a thought I've pondered a lot. He said, the definition of happiness is finding a way to be completely okay with how things are right this moment if they never change. And like I said, I don't know how much, it's just something I kick around my head every now and then when I go, is that really happiness? But then I thought more, then another quote really changed my life whenever a guy said, I used to want to be happy, now I want to be useful. So is my real pursuit in life to be happy? That seems a little narcissistic, right? If my whole purpose in life is for me to be happy, that doesn't seem like the way I kind of want to live my life. It doesn't seem like the way Jesus lived his. So it's a unique balance, right? Because I want to be happy, but I want to be useful.
Yeah, that's interesting. Purpose, which is another way to kind of frame what you're talking about, is, I mean, it does hit a lot of those same dopamine things that happy does for me. Like when I feel like I'm in my purpose, like, yes.
That's true, man.
When I look at you, I feel more about you than I probably am entitled to. Because I buried 2 brothers because of addiction. Grew up right here in Nashville. My brother Grant Bannon was a wild one. He was a great time. He passed away in 2008. And in 2009, I was starting to write. I had been starting to write songs. I'd put a little indie record out. And to mark the 1-year anniversary of his death, I played 90 shows in 90 days.
Wow.
Because you know what it's like. You know, I know you are very careful about the way you talk about your own story and healing versus 12-step, traditional 12-step. But
I love that you did 90 and 90.
Not,
you did it for what you know.
Think about, though, for this was what was so powerful to me.
I don't want to cut you off,
No.
but just for our listener that are unaware that there's a big thing that when you get sober and you've really came out of it, the first requirement a real sponsor is going to make you do upon entry to society is to do 90 meetings in 90 days. Now, keep telling your story. I just didn't want nobody to miss the powerfulness of what you did.
That is such a huge commitment.
It's a huge commitment.
So all that to say, that was I'm sorry to take time away from us telling your story, but when I look at you, I'm like, you know, I hate that Grant Bannon isn't here, but somebody is, and many somebodies are going to know you and your story, and they're going to know what's possible.
Well, you didn't take away from my story with that story because Grant's story is my story. And Grant's story is the story I tell every day. I didn't know Grant, but I now know Grant, and I tell Grant's story every day. Every night, 365 days a year, that's who I represent. I represent Grant. I represent my daughter's mother. I represent the guy that's working the truck right now that just dropped off beer next door that's sober. That just finished his 90 and 90 and got his first job, and he's delivering beer and it's driving him nuts. I just talked to him.
You know what I mean? On your way in?
Yeah. Well, yesterday on the way to the Titans game. He was like, I'm getting it though, man. I'm getting it.
Yeah.
He said, I wanted to put myself in this situation. You know, it's funny, but it's just so, it's like, that's who I'm representing. And not even as much as in sobriety as just in life. Like those who aren't, I represent those who aren't sober yet as much as I do those who are sober. You know what I mean? Right. That's it. I represent those who may never get sober just as much as I represent those who are. You know what I mean? I'm just here to represent a small part of America that has been misrepresented for so long and never actually been spoken for or humanized. Because statistically, your brother is just he's a statistic death of a drug addict. But that's your brother. You know what I mean? That was your brother. Yes. That was your mom and dad's son. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to bring that light to those situations, you know?
To the humanizing of anyone in any struggle. I mean, I could go all the way to the end of this record and past yesterday, because what we don't think about and what we don't talk about is everybody who's in a bad situation, anybody that's using, there was an original why. Yeah, at a certain point you're in relationship with the drugs, and that is its own thing with its own life. But everybody's why.
Yeah. It's I said this on Jay Shetty. I said, I used to look at people and go, what's wrong with them? Now I go, what happened to them? You know what I mean? And that changed a lot of things for how I like genuinely look at people. But it's also like songs like Past Yesterday are even deeper than drug addiction.
Absolutely.
Think about the perspective of, I thought about this when Skylar wrote the song, Don't Judge Me If I Get Too High Tonight. I think about the few women I've met who are workaholics, who never touched a drug, but because of what they went through as their childhood, it molded them into this way, and that they know that it has shaped a lot of the way that they react to things in life. And this song gives them a moment to deal with that again, to go back and go, my high's a manic high. You know what I mean? It's not a drug high. It's for these ladies who have never experienced drug at all, but they felt the pain of being abused, identify with the song. It's I had this idea called All Your Angels, which ended up being the bridge of the song. I had the idea forever, and I couldn't find the right room to write it, because I was like, this needs real time and attention, and I need the right people in the room. And we had a writer's camp, and I went downstairs, and Jessie Jo Dillon was at the writer's camp. So I was like, this is my roadie. Like, this is my, like, sister. Like, so I know I can go to her as a woman and go, am I overstepping by saying I want to touch on this subject matter, and this is what I want to do? And Jessie Fraser's in there, who is keep in mind, me, Jessie, and Jessie wrote Halfway to Hell. So we're already in our little, when we get in a room together, we expect a little magic. You know what I mean? And Pendergrass was in there, and I was like, here's my idea. And I throw it out there, and we start noodling around, and I was like, I want it to start darker. And then when I think the first line's what I spit first. And then we wrote the record right then, and the hook was All Your Angels Are There. And I called Jessie, and this is why our relationship's so good. I called Jessie and Zach Crowell, our producer, and I said, I don't think we landed the plane here.
The call no songwriter really wants ever.
Right? When you're just like, yo.
But then.
And then I tell Jesse, I'm like, let me keep figuring it out. So I sent it to a rock band that I love. And I was like, why don't y'all sing this chorus? Maybe I'm just not giving it the voice it needs. And we're really good friends. And they were like, we're into it, but we're in the middle of a tour. You know, what's the schedule on it? It just didn't look like they were going to make it.
Yeah.
And I won't say their name because we will do a song together. We're really good friends. But so I was, once again, the song's gone. Now, I'm not dissing nobody on my team, but nobody on my team feels the way I feel about this song. So nobody's coming at me like, hey, why do we keep seeing track listing without this song? This album's finna come out in like 2 weeks. And I cannot sleep thinking this song's not gonna make it.
Okay.
I literally call Skylar probably in the middle of the night. I think I just texted her the song, no context, with an open chorus.
Yeah.
And I said it had a chorus, but I blew it. I think what God's telling me is this needs to be heard from a woman as well. You know what I mean? I was like, I think, but it's like, I'm not, and I felt weird too. And the only thing that kept me going was every time I talked to Jessie Joe, she was like, don't let that song go. Mm-hmm. And I know she's not trying to push for a cut because she had four number ones this year. You know what I mean? She's got 6 cuts on my album. She's not pushing me for a cut. She's just like, Jay, please, man. Every time I play it for my wife, she cries. My wife does not voluntarily listen to my music. That's the truth. She likes my music, but she's just not a fan.
Stop it.
I swear, she's not a fan.
Wait, we do need to just a little caveat, right? Stop it. Because she is a huge Jelly fan.
She's a huge fan. She knows the music, but she's not like, you know, Bunny loves rock and roll music. Bunny loves up-tempo music, screamo, emo music. This is her style of music. You know, Bunny knew 4 country songs when I met her.
Which were what?
All Dolly. No, I'm joking. She knew 20, but they were all Dolly and Reba for real. So it's like, I knew that this song was there. And then so I sent it to Skylar, and Skylar just immediately sent back this song with a new chorus. And here's where the song keeps getting cooler. I sent it to Jessie. She's like, I love it. Send it to Zach Nelm. I feel like the production was still a little off, so Austin came in and added some elements and took the original chorus and made it the bridge. And for the first time ever, the chorus didn't sound bad to me then. I was like, this is actually a perfect bridge.
That was the chorus, you're more than what's been done to you?
No. The very back part of the song goes, in those corners you'll find that you're broken and scared and one by your side, but all your angels are there. Because the song title I had was called All Your Angels. And a lot of times I'm telling other people's story, but I'm telling it from first person. Like Winning Streak's not my story, but it just felt more of a plea for help if it came from a first person perspective. Yeah. But towards the back half of this album, I started getting really obsessed with just like, you know what, I'm writing everybody else's story from a first perspective on this album. Let's just write it as me, let me narrate it.
That's
narrating the room.
It's like we're working backwards, and I know we've already spent a decent amount of time on Past Yesterday, but there's so much. I mean, standing in the shower steam, never felt clean. There is so much about that, and also
some things you can't wash off.
Yeah. Was there a specific story for you that you had heard? Like, because it does sound like sexual assault or sexual trauma. Abuse.
My wife, she never has talked about it publicly, and she is now a little bit because of the song, but I knew that was my wife's story. And I've heard so many girls in my meet and greet lines that had the same story. I know so many women whose story was somehow truly affected, especially women that come from like sex industry work.
Oh my gosh, so vulnerable.
I mean? You know, I grew up how I grew up. I always grew up in that community, you know what I mean? And I always heard these stories, and I always felt the need to tell it. I just didn't know how, you know, and also whether or not it was my place or my voice would be, sometimes you don't know if you're the vessel, you know, but this song, the way I couldn't sleep, I was like, man, we got to put this song out. For it to be the second most streamed song on the album behind I'm Not Okay Already is like such a telltale that I wasn't thinking completely wrong.
When Bunny was posting about it and she was showing all these testimonies, and then I go down the rabbit hole of the hashtag Past Yesterday, and it's like, I was 4 and he was this. It was just like.
These women strong enough to name their accusers.
Yeah.
You know, by who they are, because that's what they would do. I go, her mom and daddy trusted that neighbor, and they would just go, my mom and daddy trusted my grandpa, my cousin, my nephew. You know what's been really eye-opening for me too, and not that I did not mean to represent them properly, and I'm glad they're identifying with it, is how many men have been brave enough.
Yes. Okay, that's a subset
to tell
we
their
don't
stories.
talk
like
about.
I'm like, whoa, like the amount of men I've seen who have stood up to go, hey man, I've never really talked about this, but I was touched whenever I was a child. You know what I mean? It's been overwhelming, the response.
Yeah. You know,
we've done so good to not cry this far in.
I mean,
I thought about it twice.
If
How
you
about
start, I will. Like
Yeah.
the postpartum hormones, I'm still breastfeeding. It's just like,
Yeah.
woo.
No, I keep wondering when I'm going to stop being so emotional. I keep thinking, I've been here for a couple of years now. It's probably not crying every interview, but I think it's because I'm talking about stuff that affects me so much because I see it in real life. When people are like, oh, you cry so much, I'm like, you don't know what it's like to have a woman melt in your arms at a meet and greet and tremble and tell you that your song Save Me got her through her rehab stint and that she was raped by her father her whole life. And you just hear this, and then you see her when you're on stage singing Save Me.
She's singing it back and you're just like, she's alive,
Yeah.
she's here tonight.
Yeah, it's like,
She's
dude,
feeling it.
she's crying here, now I'm crying, and I sound like shit singing because, you know, golly, man, they told me the best thing, man, my Miss Peaches, she sings in our backup group. She said, you can't serve and eat at the same time.
Well, that is true.
And she said, it's really hard to sing for you because, man, I be wanting to eat. You know. Every night it's a battle we got to fight on that stage. I choke up tears every single night on that stage.
Were you always able to access your heart and your feelings like that?
Oh, I didn't cry until I was in my 30s. I didn't cry the first couple of years I was with my wife. Just wasn't a trait. Even my wife was like, where did this come from? I was like, I don't know. I was just like,
Whew.
it's been really in touch with my emotions. I also did a lot of work. We talked about it last time. We had real deep talks about therapy and me getting into the community and going to on-site and really doing the work. Yeah. And I'm gonna go back when I get some time off and do more work. You know, there's a lot of work to be done. It's a journey, not a mission. You know, it's not a completion. It's a continuance. But I think a lot of that's kind of softened my heart too, and also just seeing these people and hearing these stories every night. I mean, the signs. Some venues won't let them bring their signs in, so we'll get them at the end of the night, and it'll be hundreds, dozens of signs that couldn't make it in with just the deepest stories. Some venues let certain size signs in and you'll see them, or you'll just hear stories, or sometimes, you know, it's funny how it gets around the arena. It's also fun because when there's a real story in the arena, it's the coolest thing. You will see people rally together to get that person's heard.
Oh, like, look at him, look at her.
And they're wearing a shirt that says, my mother was she, and with the date that the mother passed away. You know what I mean? And you're just like, and the whole crowd is like, right here, right? Like, you just start seeing a group like, it's just, I see it every night, dude. It's one of the talking about humanizing people, one of the greatest acts of humanity I get to see every night, arenas full of people.
See, isn't that cool? Because it's contagious.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you are giving people, you're giving voice to these stories, you're giving people that access to that microphone, and then the fans are going, we get it. Like, we're going to do it too. Like, that is...
Yeah.
That is so powerful. We were, you know...
Pauly Shore said something about my show. I'm sorry to keep talking,
please.
but I'm just excited. Pauly Shore, not name dropping, but I am, because he's my friend and I'm excited about it. The Weasel loves me. But we're hanging out the other night after I did Joe's pod, and Pauly said, my Pauly Shore impression's really bad, but I'm going to try it.
Please.
He goes, bro, the show, bro? He said, I know the hits, bro, but I don't know all the songs, bro, but it didn't matter, bro, because it was one song, bro. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing it in Pauly's voice, but it's the realest shit ever. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, Pauly, I'm stealing that. And right before he left that night, he looked at me and said, hey, bro, one song, bro. Mm-hmm. I'll think about that forever, because his thing was like, I knew Save Me, I knew Need a Fa, I knew 4 songs. I didn't know he's like, but it didn't matter. He said, because I was so in the set and so in the moment. It was just one big song to me.
The thing that is happening at these shows that is so powerful, and it is church-like, but what is different from a lot of people's experience of church is the radical acceptance of people. When there is nothing that you are ashamed of in everything or a lot of your past, it isn't taboo. It can be talked about. It isn't secret. That is just this huge permission for anything that's happened to me or I've done that I'm accountable for to be part of the discussion. And I don't have it all worked out in some perfect point here, but there's something really magic about nothing is taboo.
Right.
There's all the secrets that we were afraid to say to everybody for however long. When you take that away, what's possible?
Yeah, I think radical acceptance is a great. I'll be using that term too now. It's a great term for. I'll probably get in trouble for this, but I don't really care at this point. I am trying to bring back the gray area, and it's a fight, but I think that I'm winning a little bit with people, and I think that's where radical acceptance comes from. It's when people get out of the white or get out of the black, and they go. Because my gray area is only for, I just want to see people win and do better. Because I've seen people do bad for so long, and I did bad for so long. And I think they feel that through the music. So all of a sudden, you can leave all the dogma at the door. You know what I mean? And come into the arena. And it's not just, and I'm not talking about the political dogma. I'm talking about the church dogma. I'm talking about recovery dogma. I'm talking about all these dogmatic principles of there's only one way of doing things. But they get to the moment where it's like, I get to see radical Christians even come to me and go, hey man, you don't really stand for what I believe the Bible stands for, but man, a lot of people are hearing about Jesus because of you, dude. And I hope it leads them to my side of this. And I'm like, yeah, I take that as man, bless. I hope they do too. I hope they end up on whatever side changes and heals them.
The gray, ooh. I was like, you were saying that and I was like, where exactly is he going with that? But what's tricky is I never want to presume that I understand what recovery is like. Yeah. I've seen a lot of the battle.
This is what I tell people. My thought about recovery is this. I think AA is great. I think NA is great. I think Celebrate Recovery are great. I think if you believe that harm reduction can work for you, that's great. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If you think abstinence is your model, that's great. I'm just into people recovery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just what I'm into. You know what I mean? Whether you take practical approaches to mental health, meaning that you like to know the X's and O's of why you think, or whether you prefer to do emotional work, I want you to go do the one that helps you.
Yeah.
If sitting in a room and talking about your childhood and finally crying and really getting that out of you helps, that's what you should do. If that stuff don't feel right to you and the more practical side of it, you should, you know what I mean? Like I live in that. When I say the gray, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
You know what I mean? It's like, because I also believe that if you give people grace to be in the gray, to figure themselves out, they'll find their way to what works for them. You know what I mean? They'll find their way to what works for them. Just give people time to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, and this all started by me talking about the show. And I think that I create a place, and that's why these arenas are full every night, because people know they can leave all that shit at the door. Then they know when they listen to the album, they can leave all that shit at the door, because it's like, it's going back to serving or eating. They're trying to get fed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as long as we're serving and we're doing God's work serving and people are eating, then man, the rest will figure itself out. You know, they'll find their way to what food they like the most and helps them the most. And I don't mean that from a spiritual,
truly.
Mental, emotional perspective. Like, we're just serving, man.
I have been so lost in this conversation in the best way that I just didn't even do my normal get us through the songs. But the songs are so good. They don't need me teeing them up, you telling people about them. So all that to say, I'm sorry we didn't talk song, but this was so lovely.
Oh,
and
listen, the album's out. Y'all know what I do.
The album is
on brand for everything we've talked about.
Chock full of
everything we talked about is touched on the album. You know what I'm saying? I can also tell you this. This is where I'm just too honest for most people. One thing artists will never admit, because they're afraid to tell corporate people this, is that we don't like talking about our songs, man. Most of us don't, because we like telling them when they have a really cool story like the one passed yesterday, but more often than not, I think that art should always be open for interpretation. And I believe that as soon as you put me in the art, then you might take away the impact it could have for somebody else and what they could get from it. So if you I don't never want to tell nobody why I wrote Save Me. Because then it might not be why Save Me saved them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think that art is open for interpretation. I love that I never really found out exactly what James Taylor wrote Fire and Rain about, but I can tell you 30 different times it's applied to something different happening in my life. And maybe if I knew exactly what he was thinking about when he wrote it, it might take that away from it.
Yeah.
And that's just how I feel. Maybe I'm old school and I'm precious, but I'm like, much rather spend less time talking about the music, just talking about life and how it affected the music.
Yeah.
And then hope the music meets them where they are.
Yes, amen.
I also tell people this, when people are like, hey man, your music's not for me. They think that bothers. Dude, I'm like, thank you. Like, I pray it never is. But if my music ever is for you, I pray it meets you when you need it the most.
Beautiful.
Because that's what I know about my music. You know, does that make, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I know about my music. I know when people are like, I don't really get it. It's like, man, God, I'm glad you didn't go through enough trauma to really feel what I'm talking about. Mm. But if life ever catches you on the other side of it, because if it don't get you in the wash, it'll get you in the rinse. I do hope that a Jelly Roll song will find you when you need it the most. Mm-hmm. And don't feel the need to tweet me and tell me you were wrong. Mm. You know what I mean? I just hope it helps you and meet you where you are.